There is a kind of silence in the ocean that feels older than time itself. A silence that doesn't just swallow sound, it swallows truth. And when you begin to study the ocean not as a place of water, but as a graveyard that never returns what it takes, you start to understand why ancient sailors whispered one terrifying belief for thousands of years. The sea does not decay the dead, it consumes them. But the real mystery begins when you discover that the ocean doesn't behave the way nature should. Bodies don't simply decay in the water. They disappear, often far faster than biology can explain. Families wait for days, weeks, months, hoping for remains to surface. Yet the ocean, calm or violent, warm or freezing, shallow or abyssal, almost never gives anything back. Something is happening down there that goes far beyond rot, far beyond scavengers, far beyond the predictable timelines of death. When a human body dies on land, we know the stages: livor mortis, rigor mortis, bloating, purging, decomposition, skeletonization. It's a slow surrender to time, but in the ocean, time does not behave. Hours stretch and collapse. Days vanish. What should take weeks is sometimes over in a single night. In some regions, in some depths, the timeline of decay doesn't just accelerate, it collapses entirely. Scientists studying this phenomenon use a phrase that feels almost supernatural: accelerated disappearance. One experiment, conducted off the coast of British Columbia, left forensic researchers stunned. They lowered pig carcasses, which are the closest biological substitute to humans, into the ocean with underwater cameras watching every second. They expected slow decay. Instead, within a matter of hours, not days, not weeks, the bodies vanished, stripped down to bone, and then scattered into unrecognizable fragments. But the shocking part wasn't scavengers. The shocking part was the speed. The ocean acted like it had a hunger, as if it recognized death instantly and summoned everything it had to erase the evidence. Crabs, shrimp, eels, amphipods, hagfish, creatures that never see sunlight, that never touch the shore, rushed like soldiers answering a silent signal. The ocean didn't wait for decay. It removed the body before decay even began its work. At greater depths, an even stranger rule applies. Soft tissue doesn't always decay faster. Sometimes, it barely decays at all. Instead, the body is absorbed by pressure, dissolved by bacteria unique to the seabed, or compressed until the shape collapses like wet paper. What remains is not a skeleton lying peacefully on the ocean floor. What remains is often nothing. People think lost bodies float back eventually. They imagine a lifeless form rising to the surface, like some forgotten message in a bottle. But that's mostly a myth. A human body has to reach a very precise stage of decomposition before it becomes buoyant enough to rise, and the ocean almost never allows that stage to happen. It interrupts the process long before the body can float. It steps in early, fast, aggressively, stripping, consuming, dissolving. And if the ocean is cold enough, the story grows darker. Cold water slows decay dramatically. But instead of preserving a body like a freezer, the ocean uses the cold as a weapon. Deep-sea amphipods, tiny, almost invisible crustaceans, remain active even near freezing temperatures. They swarm the body in clouds, crawling into wounds, eye sockets, the mouth, the soft tissues. These creatures don't wait for decomposition. They create it. They tear open the body from the inside, making decay happen where it hasn't even started. The result? A corpse can vanish faster in icy water than in warm tropics. But not every disappearance can be blamed on biology. Some vanishings defy even those explanations. There are bodies that go down in shallow water, calm water, and are never found. No currents strong enough to pull them out to sea, no predators large enough to drag them away, no seismic events to disturb the seabed. Just stillness. Stillness and absence. When rescue teams dive, they find no trace. Not bone, not cloth, not even disturbed sand. It is as if the ocean swallowed the person whole, the way a black hole swallows light, silently, completely, without leaving a single clue behind. Reports from naval divers describe underwater zones where visibility is perfect, but the moment a body enters that region, living or dead, it vanishes from sensors. Sonar readings suddenly go flat. Cameras show only darkness. The water becomes empty. not just in the visible sense. Empty like something has overwritten reality itself, like a blank page replacing a sentence. Coast guards call these areas dead pockets. Local fishermen call them hungry waters. Some cultures refuse to sail over them entirely, believing the ocean there is thin, like a brittle layer of glass covering something deeper, hungrier, older. Then there is the role of pressure. The deeper you go, the less human rules apply. At around 1,000 meters, the ocean doesn't just compress a body. It crushes it into shapes so unfamiliar that even forensic experts struggle to understand what they're looking at. Bones that should break simply bend. Tissues that should float simply smear. Clothing either disintegrates or fuses with biological matter. The deeper you sink, the more the ocean stops behaving like a place and starts behaving like a process. And at the deepest points, almost no organic remains survive at all. The combination of pressure, temperature, bacterial colonies, methane seeps, and supercritical water doesn't destroy bodies. It erases them. Not slowly, not respectfully, but as if the ocean is correcting a mistake. A human descending into those depths is like a snowflake falling into a furnace. They do not leave remains. They leave only memory. But here's the most unsettling part. Even in shallower waters, bodies often disappear in ways that confuse experts. Some corpses sink far deeper than their density should allow. Some drift sideways against currents, some drop suddenly after floating for hours, and some do the opposite. They rise unnaturally fast, only to vanish again moments later, as if pulled down by an invisible hand. There are countless documented cases of bodies disappearing between the moment they were spotted and the moment rescuers reached the location. Sometimes a matter of seconds. The timeline is impossible. No animal could act that fast. No current could drag that precisely. Something else seems to happen in those final moments that science still cannot fully explain. Something hidden beneath the surface tension, waiting. Maritime folklore has always insisted that the ocean chooses. Sailors believed the sea kept what it wanted and returned only what it could not use. Of course, those were stories, comfortable explanations for tragedies no one understood. But modern data suggests something eerily similar. The ocean behaves selectively. Bodies in nearly identical conditions can vanish at dramatically different speeds. One disappears within hours. Another lasts days. Another is found weeks later, perfectly preserved. One drifts for miles. Another sinks vertically like a stone. A third floats but never surfaces. These inconsistencies aren't random. They follow patterns we still haven't mapped. And yet, the ocean does not boast. It does not announce what it takes. It just closes over the dead with a calmness that feels almost ritualistic. We like to think land buries bodies more completely. But land always returns the dead, eventually. Bones resurface. Graves collapse. Erosion reveals what was hidden. Land cannot hold a secret forever. The ocean can. It is the only place on Earth where a human can vanish without trace, without timeline, without witness. It is not just a grave, it is an eraser, a recycler, a patient and ancient system that absorbs what falls into it and reorganizes it into silence. When you stand on the shore and look out at the horizon, the water seems gentle. It reflects sunlight. It breaks softly against sand. But beneath that peaceful surface lies a world operating on rules that do not care about our hopes, our closure, or our need for answers. We fear the ocean, not because it kills, but because it keeps. And no matter how advanced our technology becomes, no matter how deep we dive or how powerful our machines grow, the ocean holds one truth firmly in its cold, dark hands. What it takes, it almost never returns. They say the ocean is dark, that below a few hundred meters, sunlight dies, and the world becomes a cold, silent void. But submariners, those who drift through the blackness in steel vessels, know a truth the rest of the world rarely hears. The deep ocean is not truly dark. Not always. Not everywhere. Sometimes, it glows. And the first time it happened, the crew didn't believe their own sonar. Because sonar is not supposed to detect light. It measures sound, pressure, distance, shape, not light. Yet it did. It began as a simple anomaly on the monitors, an unfamiliar vertical reading that stretched upward from deep beneath the submarine. At first, the crew thought it was a fault, a sensor malfunction. But then a second line appeared, and a third. And suddenly the sonar was filled with vertical pillars, bright echoes standing straight like luminous towers rising from the abyss. The ocean is three-dimensional chaos. Currents twist sideways, temperature layers curve horizontally, sound waves scatter. Nothing in the deep forms perfect vertical structures, and certainly nothing made of light. But that night, the sonar showed columns, straight, unwavering, like solid beams connecting the seafloor to the surface. The commander ordered all non-essential lights in the submarine turned off. The crew held their breath. And through the viewports, through hundreds of meters of black crushing water, something impossible shimmered. Light. Actual light. Faint but vertical, stretching downward endlessly like glowing ropes suspended in the void. At first, it flickered like heat haze underwater. Then, it strengthened. The pillars brightened into narrow shafts, pale and ghostly, almost like moonlight piercing a cathedral of darkness. Nobody spoke. Every instrument insisted the same thing. The light was not coming from above. It was coming from below. And that is where the fear began. Because when light rises from the deep, it means something down there is generating it. Something powerful enough, organized enough, or ancient enough to bend one of the coldest, darkest regions on Earth into a glowing signal. Reports of these vertical light pillars exist quietly in naval archives, tucked away under vague labels like unexplained sonar returns, deep pelagic anomalies, subsurface luminous columns. But among submariners, they have a name whispered like a warning: the rising lights. The phenomenon is rare, unpredictable, and deeply unsettling because the ocean below 200 meters is not supposed to have stationary light sources. Bioluminescence exists, but it pulsates, flashes, flickers, scatters. It does not form still towering structures. It does not align into geometric pillars, and it does not hold shape for minutes at a time. So, what exactly is sonar detecting? Some marine physicists believe sonar doesn't see the light directly. It sees the distortion caused by something luminous, something altering the density of the water. Light underwater bends water temperature and density just enough to be readable as a column. But that explanation falls apart when you consider how tall these structures are. Some crews recorded pillars extending for over a kilometer. Nothing biological we know can generate light on that scale. Others think the pillars are superheated water rising from deep hydrothermal vents, glowing with microbial bioluminescence. But hydrothermal plumes drift in clouds, not straight lines, and many sightings occur in regions with no volcanic activity at all. Then there are accounts, classified, disputed, but consistent, of sonar registering movement inside the columns. Not outward movement, not upward, but spiraling, as if something within the pillars was turning slowly, like gears inside a machine. One submarine, patrolling the North Atlantic, reported a massive column rising from 5,000 meters, rotating counterclockwise with perfect uniformity. As the sub approached, the sonar readings began to distort, bending inward like they were being pulled. The water temperature dropped so sharply, the hull groaned, and then the lights vanished. Not faded, vanished. Instant, complete, like a curtain dropping. The instruments returned to normal. The water warmed. The void returned. But none of the crew slept that night. Multiple nations have since tried recreating the conditions. They dropped cameras into recorded coordinates. They sent autonomous drones. They deployed hypersensitive photonic sensors. None of the equipment captured the pillars, but sonar did. Again and again. Whatever these lights are, they seem to exist in a spectrum the human eye can barely detect. Yet sonar, ironically, sees them clearly, as if the ocean itself is echoing the shape of something we were never meant to see. Some submariners describe the pillars as silent storms. Others say they look like columns of rising souls. A few, shaken by what they witnessed, insisted the pillars felt alive, like something was watching the submarine from within the glow. Then there are the cases no Navy likes to discuss. Sightings where the light pillars were accompanied by sudden, severe gravitational anomalies. Tiny, local distortions strong enough to tilt the submarine a few degrees. In those moments, compasses spun. Pressure sensors peaked. Hull plating vibrated. One U.S. submarine reported that as they passed near a pillar, every electrical system flickered simultaneously, as if the boat itself had been briefly unplugged from reality. And then, there were the disappearances. Several search and rescue dives into regions associated with light pillars have yielded the same haunting pattern. The bodies do not return, not even bones, not even fragments, nothing. As if the vertical columns of light are not just illumination, but gateways, processes, events, something rising, something collecting, something interacting with the world above in ways we cannot yet map or measure. There is a theory, unofficial, whispered among oceanographers, that the pillars might be deep-sea methane flares, ignited by unknown chemical reactions, but methane burns orange, red, violent, not pale white or silver, and certainly not in perfectly vertical, stable columns. Some physicists propose that these pillars are supercavitating plumes, created by ultra-fast objects breaking the water at extreme speeds. But if that were true, why do the pillars last so long? Why do they stay still? Why do they sometimes expand and contract like breathing? And why does sonar sometimes show shapes inside them, spherical, disc-like, or long and narrow, matching nothing biological, nothing mechanical, nothing natural? Deep-sea mythology paints an even stranger picture. Ancient Polynesian legends speak of Te Komaru, the vertical light, rising from the sea as a messenger between worlds. Inuit lore describes pillars of cold fire appearing near fatal waters, warning hunters to stay away. Norse sailors believed certain glowing shafts in the ocean were entrances to Ran's realm, the goddess who drags souls into the deep. Strangely, the coordinates associated with these myths match areas where modern submarines have recorded anomalies. But, myths aside, the scientific truth remains chilling. The pillars don't drift. They don't bend with currents. They don't spread. They don't weaken gradually. They behave like intentional structures, appearing, holding shape, and disappearing as if controlled by something with a design. Some submarine captains believe the pillars are a kind of communication system buried deep within the Earth's oceans, like messages fired upward through water instead of sky, a vertical Morse code in light. Others suspect they are geological events we don't yet understand, or chemical anomalies, or even cryovolcanic releases. But a small number, usually the veterans who've spent decades in the deep, speak in quieter voices. They propose something else. Not a creature, not a machine, not a geological vent, but a boundary. A vertical boundary, like the edge of an unseen structure below the seafloor. Vertical light columns as the edges of something hidden. Something enormous. Something ancient. A framework buried under the ocean, occasionally pulsing through the darkness like a heartbeat that only sonar can feel. Perhaps the pillars are not signals. Perhaps they are leaks. Energy escaping from a world beneath ours, light bleeding through cracks in the ocean floor, a structure shifting, waking, adjusting, and submarines drifting blindly through the abyss just happen to be close enough to witness these luminous scars. Whatever they are, one truth is certain. Every time a submarine records these vertical pillars of light, something else disappears. Bodies, signals, readings, even entire drone units. As if these luminous columns are connected to the ocean's deepest secret. The sea doesn't just refuse to return its dead. It takes them upward, downward, sideways, through boundaries we don't yet have names for. And the pillars of light may be the only moments when that hidden system becomes visible, brief windows when the ocean's hunger glows. They say water remembers. It carries the imprint of every touch, every vibration, every life that has passed through it. But the ocean, vast, ancient, immeasurable, is not just water. It is the oldest witness on Earth, older than mountains, older than forests, older than human stories. And across civilizations, across eras, across continents, the ocean has been feared not only as a grave, but as a recycler of memory, a place where the past dissolves into currents only to be reborn as something unrecognizable. To understand this myth, you have to imagine the ocean not as a body of water, but as a living archive, a shifting, breathing library whose shelves are made of trenches and whose pages are written in tides. When ancient cultures spoke of the sea, they did not believe it simply swallowed the dead. They believed it absorbed them, mind, memory, emotion, and then broke them down into something the world could use again. A kind of cosmic recycling where nothing is lost and nothing truly dies. It simply changes form. The Greeks were among the first to whisper about this. They believed the ocean was ruled by Proteus, the old man of the sea, a shape-shifting being who never offered the same answer twice. Proteus didn't refuse to speak. He simply refused to speak in a single form. To the Greeks, this was not merely trickery. It was symbolism. The ocean transforms truth. It distorts memory until nothing remains but fragments drifting like silt. But the idea goes deeper in older cultures. Cultures that lived closer to the water, that feared its moods the way one fears a deity. The Polynesians spoke of Moana Mahara, the sea of memory, where the spirits of the drowned did not sleep but dissolved. Their stories said the ocean breaks memory the way salt breaks stone, slowly, patiently, until everything becomes fluid again. A person taken by the ocean does not keep their shape. Their identity is unstitched, thread by thread, until the soul becomes a part of the sea itself. The memories scatter into currents and later rise as intuition, as déjà vu, as dreams of a life never lived. Imagine that for a moment. The ocean as an endless dream machine, recycling the memories of those it has consumed. In Inuit legend, the sea goddess Sedna was said to gather the drowned in her hair, tangling their stories until nothing remained but their emotional residue, fear, longing, regret, released into the water to guide future travelers. To them, the sea did not remember names, places, or events. It remembered feelings. It recycled emotion, not narrative. A terrifying idea, that every fear a sailor feels on the water might not be their own, but the inherited terror of someone who died there centuries earlier. The Japanese believe something similar. Their folklore speaks of the Unmei Umi, the ocean of fate. When someone drowned, their memories did not drift away. The sea kept them, purified them, and reused them. Their experiences became part of the next storm, the next tide, the next whisper heard by a fisherman lost in fog. In this worldview, the drowning of a single soul could alter the destiny of an entire coastline. And then there is the oldest story of all, the Babylonian myth of Tiamat. Tiamat was the primordial ocean, chaotic, formless, and eternal. And when she was slain by the young gods, her body didn't simply become the world. Her memories did. Her emotions shaped the rivers. Her grief shaped the storms. Her rage shaped the deep trenches. In other words, the world was built from recycled memory. Humanity lives inside the remains of a god, whose consciousness was transformed into geography. It sounds like mythology. It sounds poetic. But what if the ancients were describing something real, something they didn't have the language for? Because modern science has stumbled into a disturbing truth. Water does retain patterns. It is influenced by energy, by vibration, by trauma, by presence. Quantum researchers speak of water's ability to hold structural memory. Temporary, yes, but shockingly persistent. Oceanographers know that sound travels differently in regions where mass death has occurred. Marine biologists have discovered behavioral anomalies in sea life around shipwrecks and mass drownings. What if the sea is more than water? What if it is a system, an emotional processor, taking in the final sensations of those who die within it? But myths don't stop at water remembering. They insist the ocean reuses what it remembers. In Hindu tradition, the ocean is Samudra, the ultimate receiver of karma. When someone dies in water, their unresolved energy is said to be broken down and re-released into the world, not as ghosts, not as spirits, but as subtle shifts in consciousness across living beings. A drowned man's courage might return as a sudden bravery in a fisherman generations later. A sailor's despair might echo as a strange sadness in someone standing on a cliff overlooking the sea. This wasn't superstition. It was a metaphysical recycling program. The Celts believed the sea was a threshold, a liminal zone, where identity dissolves upon contact with the deep. A drowned person's memories were believed to fragment into the waves, later manifesting as sea fog, mists that hold whispers of the past. To walk into such fog was to step into an old memory, not your own. Irish fishermen would not sail on days when the fog spoke, as they believed it was the ocean returning borrowed memories to the air. Then come the Romans, who wrote of the aqua memoria, water that eats stories. According to Roman sailors, the sea was a scribe that erased its ink after reading it. A person who died in water did not haunt the waves. They became part of the tide cycle. Their essence stretched thinner and thinner until it became indistinguishable from the water itself. And yet, the Romans believed the ocean gave small pieces back, moments of intuition that came from no logical source, sudden fears, sudden peace, sudden visions. Everyone who spends enough time at sea experiences these things. Modern sailors call them sea thoughts. Ancient sailors called them borrowed memories. But here is where the myth becomes darker. Some cultures believed the ocean not only recycles memory, it feeds on it. The Maya described the sea as a living stomach, digesting not only bodies, but consciousness. To them, memory is energy, and the ocean is a predator of energy. Every drowned soul strengthens the sea. Every tragedy enriches it. The ocean becomes heavier, thicker, more intelligent with each life it takes. This idea appears globally. In Haiti, the sea is believed to eat the mind before the body. In Sri Lankan lore, the sea steals the last thought of the drowning. In Madagascar, the ocean is called the swallower of stories. In all these cultures, the ocean is not merely depth, it is process, a machine, a memory processor, an identity disassembler. And if that is true, then the ocean's refusal to return its dead is not a failure, it is a function. The sea takes memory, breaks it apart, repurposes it, and releases fragments back into the world in the form of instinct, fate, intuition, dreams, omens, storms, and tides. The modern world dismisses these myths, but deep-sea researchers occasionally witness things that make them hesitate. Divers report hearing voices deep underwater, voices they cannot identify, speaking languages no one has spoken for centuries. Some hear laughter. Others hear screams. Others hear whispers that match the cadence of loved ones long dead. Sound does not travel randomly underwater. It travels with purpose, and sometimes it carries memory. Marine biologists studying whale communication have found strange patterns, sequences of sound that do not belong to any known behavior or purpose. They resemble fragments of language, echoes of something once spoken by humans. But whales are not mimics. They do not imitate human speech, which raises a disturbing possibility. What if the ocean has absorbed human communication for so long that it now echoes it through its creatures? The strangest reports come from bathysphere dives, moments when deep-sea submersibles go silent and the crew feels overwhelming emotions, sorrow, panic, euphoria, a sense of déjà vu so strong it feels like stepping into a childhood memory, except the diver did not grow up anywhere near the ocean. Imagine descending into the deep and feeling the grief of a sailor lost 300 years ago. Imagine feeling the terror of a shipwreck survivor moments before drowning. Imagine feeling joy from someone who once crossed the ocean to start a new life. These experiences come and go. They cannot be recorded or measured, but the people who felt them swear they were real. If the ocean is indeed a memory recycler, then these moments are leakage, loose fragments that drift upward like sediment caught in a rising current. But what about the ocean itself? Does all this memory change it? Scientists have discovered that the ocean is not chemically uniform. Some regions behave strangely, as if the water itself has been altered by long-term exposure to large-scale human tragedy. Places where entire fleets sank centuries ago show unexplained anomalies, chemical, electromagnetic, even acoustic. It is almost as if trauma imprints itself on the ocean, as if the sea holds scars. The idea becomes terrifying when you consider one final possibility. If the ocean recycles memory, then it has been doing it since the beginning of life. Every creature that ever lived, breathed, died, and dissolved in the ocean has contributed to its memory. Billions of years of evolution, extinction, birth, suffering, hunger, fear, desire, all of it processed and repurposed, which means the ocean is not ancient. It is ageless. It is the sum total of all life that has ever touched it. And perhaps that is why the sea refuses to give back its dead. It is not withholding, it is not hiding, it is completing a cycle older than land, older than air, older than humanity itself. When the ocean takes someone, it does not bury them, it unravels them. It takes the thread of their existence, pulls it free, and reweaves it into the fabric of the world. Nothing is lost, nothing is kept. Everything becomes something else. And if you listen closely to the waves long enough, if you stand at the shore in the right moment, you might feel it, a whisper, a memory, a feeling. Something that does not belong to you, but rises from the deep because the ocean has decided it is time to return a fragment of what it once consumed. There are places in the ocean where the water behaves like it no longer belongs to this planet, places where chemistry breaks its own rules, where elements rearrange themselves without heat, without motion, without explanation. Sailors have reported these waters for centuries, regions where the ocean glows faintly under the moon, where compasses pull sideways, and where the surface tastes metallic, bitter, or electric. But only recently did scientists start to understand what may be happening. Because in these rare and terrifying regions, the ocean shows signs of plasma discharge, an event that should exist only in storms, stars, and high-voltage laboratories, not in the cold, crushing stillness of the deep. The first clue didn't come from light. It came from silence. In the 1990s, research vessels studying deep-sea vents noticed something strange. Chemical sensors were spiking with impossible values. The water showed ionization levels comparable to a lightning strike, but there had been no storms above, no volcanic activity below, and no electromagnetic interference from the ship. Then, moments later, the water surrounding the vessel lit up with a soft, pulsating glow. White at first, then blue, then violet, swirling silently under the hull like ghost fire. The instruments didn't malfunction. The crew didn't hallucinate. The ocean itself changed. When samples were pulled up, the chemistry was unmistakable. The water had been partially ionized, as if struck by lightning, but from below. This was the beginning of a phenomenon oceanographers now fear more than they understand. The possibility that the ocean sometimes behaves like a conductor for energy that does not originate from the surface, but rises from the deep. The term used in scientific papers is calm, clinical, unafraid, subaqueous plasma-like discharge. But to sailors, divers, submariners, people who have witnessed it with their own eyes, it has a different name, the deep lightning. Unlike storms, this discharge does not crackle, it does not roar, it does not split the sky. It appears silently. It emerges from darkness. It rises like breath from the lungs of the earth. To understand how terrifying this is, you have to understand plasma. Plasma is the fourth state of matter, hotter than fire, more dangerous than electricity. It forms in stars, in lightning, in nuclear fusion. On land, you need immense heat or voltage to create it. But the deep ocean, it is cold. It is dark. It is dense. Plasma should be impossible, and yet, it appears. But not in random locations. The anomalies cluster around deep trenches, Mariana, Tonga, Kermadec, Puerto Rico, Java. The deepest wounds on the planet, regions where the Earth's crust behaves unpredictably, where pressure and temperature create conditions we still cannot replicate in a laboratory. Some researchers believe these areas host underwater electrical discharges created by piezoelectric compression of minerals. When rocks are crushed at extreme depths, they produce electrical currents, but the outputs should be tiny, microscopic, nothing like the massive ionization events detected in the water. So what could create plasma-level electrical energy beneath 7 miles of crushing pressure? What force exists below the seabed that can ignite water into light? Chemical analysis provides the next clue. During these events, water samples show elevated concentrations of ionized hydrogen and oxygen, free electrons, unstable isotopes of sulfur and nitrogen, trace levels of exotic compounds seen only in meteor impacts, argon and xenon at concentrations far above normal seawater, hyperreactive ions that should decay instantly, but don't. This is not the signature of ordinary underwater lightning. This is something else, something more controlled, something more organized, something more persistent. Some scientists now suspect these anomalies may be connected to massive electrical structures forming deep within the mantle, structures that occasionally release energy upward through cracks in the seafloor, ionizing the water column above them. Others believe the discharges are caused by unknown microbial ecosystems, vast colonies that generate electrical fields as part of their metabolism, life that doesn't use sunlight, oxygen, or heat, but electricity itself. But the most controversial theory suggests the ocean is interacting with something beneath the crust, something metallic, structured, and hollow. Electromagnetic readings near plasma sites show patterns too geometric to be natural, straight lines, repeating intervals, pulses at exact frequencies as if responding to some internal rhythm. This has led to the most unsettling hypothesis of all. The ocean's plasma discharges might not be geological. They may be technological, not human technology, not ancient civilizations, but something deeper, something older than history, something embedded so far beneath the crust that humanity has evolved on top of it, unaware. This theory remains hidden in classified research because the implications are too vast to confront publicly. But the data leaks out through whispers, through retired naval scientists, through divers who saw the glow and vowed never to return. Yet plasma leaves behind more than light. It changes the water in ways that defy explanation. After a deep plasma event, the ocean shows reduced salinity without dilution, temporary magnetic field reversals, temperature increases at specific microlayers, formation of new isotopes not found anywhere else on Earth, strange crystallization patterns on metal equipment. Even stranger, the water becomes acoustically hard. Sonar bounces differently, almost like hitting a wall of glass. Submarines that pass through these regions report sudden static, hallucinations, disorientation, and feelings of déjà vu or dread. Some crew members claim that the water seemed to vibrate around them, humming with a frequency just below human hearing. One described it best. It felt like the ocean was thinking. And then there are the cases where plasma seems to rise not as a burst, but as a column, a vertical beam of luminous ionized water shooting upward through the dark, identical to what submarines have recorded in the form of mysterious sonar light pillars. In these rare moments, the ocean behaves like a conduit connecting two worlds, the crushing dark below and the fragile light above. What lies in that connection is unknown. Some researchers believe these plasma columns are the Earth venting energy built up over millennia. Others believe they are a form of natural fusion reaction, taking place in extreme pressure zones. A few propose they are the ocean's way of relieving electromagnetic tension stored in the crust. But then you hear the testimonies from submariners. A classified encounter from 2014 describes a nuclear submarine crossing the Philippine Trench when sensors recorded enormous electric fields building below. Before the crew could react, a blazing vertical shaft of bluish-white light shot upward past the hull. Cameras captured nothing but glare. Sonar registered a screaming distortion. The pressure outside fluctuated so violently, the hull panels groaned like tortured steel. And yet, the water never boiled. The crew survived. The ocean closed over the event like a curtain hiding a forbidden stage. The discharge was silent, controlled, intentional, as if something below had released just enough energy to be seen, not enough to be understood. And the chemical anomalies that followed were unprecedented. Water samples near the event showed signatures scientists couldn't replicate in any lab. Unexpected bonds, unstable ion clusters, and one compound resembling a molecule theorized in astrophysics but never observed on Earth. Its nickname in the lab notes was simple: star water. But plasma events are not always harmless. Fishermen in the Caribbean speak of zones where water glows without source, and boats that enter do not return. Divers exploring underwater cave systems in the Mediterranean have reported sudden flashes of light, followed by metallic tastes in their mouths and burning sensations on their skin. In 2007, a research submersible exploring the Tonga Trench experienced a plasma discharge so intense that the sub's external cameras melted, and yet the water temperature did not rise. It was not heat, it was energy. Coherent, directed energy. And for 2 minutes after the event, microphones recorded something else, a deep rhythmic pulse coming from miles below, like breath or machinery. Some argue plasma events are tied to methane gas ignitions, but methane burns red or orange, not blue-white. It does not ionize water. It does not create exotic isotopes. It does not leave electromagnetic scars. Others claim it's the Earth's magnetic field behaving unpredictably. But the anomalies don't match magnetic storms. They are localized, vertical, and chemical, not just electrical. So the question becomes, what is creating plasma inside the ocean? A natural event we haven't discovered? A geological system deeper than our models allow? Or something artificial, hidden beneath miles of pressure and darkness? Whatever the answer, one thing is certain. Every plasma discharge coincides with something else: the disappearance of biological matter. Fish densities around these regions drop to almost zero. Carcasses vanish. Organic material breaks down faster than decay should allow. It's as if the plasma doesn't just ionize water, it purifies it, resets it, wipes it clean. A memory recycler, a boundary marker, a cleansing event, a signal, a warning, a breath from something hidden. The ocean is not empty. It is layered with processes we cannot see, and plasma is the closest the deep comes to speaking. A flash, a glow, a moment where the rules of physics hesitate, and something older than science asserts itself. Perhaps the most haunting idea is this: we are not observing the ocean. We are witnessing the edge of a system that does not want to be found. And plasma discharge, those brief moments of impossible chemistry, are the ocean's way of telling us, enough. Go no further. You are trespassing on something ancient, something alive, something watching. The ocean is quiet until a whale sings. Its voice, deep, trembling, ancient, travels farther than any sound made by a living creature, across entire basins, through continents of water, through layers of darkness that sunlight has never touched. A whale's song is not just communication, it is orientation, a map, a memory, a long, vibrating thread connecting it to everything around it. But over the last century, something has been tearing those threads apart. Something that breaks navigation in a creature born to navigate better than any ship, any satellite, any navy. Something we cannot see, something we barely understand. Something beneath the ocean and above it, threading through the planet like a pulse. Geomagnetic spikes. Sudden, violent changes in the Earth's magnetic field. So brief that you would not feel them, yet so powerful that whales lose themselves instantly. Their internal compass collapses. Their sonar becomes confused. Their sense of direction dissolves like salt in water. And when that happens, tragedy follows. Because when a 40-ton creature loses its sense of the world, it doesn't wander. It crashes into beaches, into reefs, into shallow bays where its own weight suffocates it. Entire pods follow each other to death, bound by loyalty deeper than biology. But the mystery is not just the deaths. It is why the navigation collapse happens, and where. Because every time mass strandings occur, the magnetic field above that region shows anomalies, spikes, distortions, twists, events too localized, too precise, too sudden to be natural noise. To understand this, we must understand the whale, a creature that feels the earth more deeply than any instrument we have ever built. Whales don't navigate like birds, using the stars. They don't navigate like humans, using memory. They navigate by sensing the planet itself. Their skulls contain magnetite, tiny crystals sensitive to magnetic fields. Their neural pathways translate geomagnetic energy into direction, distance, even emotional state. A whale doesn't look for north, it feels it. Imagine having a compass in your blood. Now imagine that compass spinning uncontrollably. That is what happens during a geomagnetic spike. And these spikes are increasing, not gradually, not randomly, but in disturbing patterns that match. Regions of oceanic plasma discharge, zones where deep trenches show rising electromagnetic activity, paths where submarine sonar has detected vertical columns of unknown light, areas where bodies vanish faster than decay should allow, as if the same hidden forces shaping the deep ocean are also corrupting the very map inside a whale's mind. Mass strandings are not random tragedies. They are symptoms, alarms, the ocean's version of a seizure. Take the case of Cape Cod, where whales strand more frequently than anywhere else on Earth. Scientists mapped the magnetic anomalies over that region and found distortions so sharp they resemble tears, rips in the planet's natural electromagnetic fabric. When these distortions intensify, whales lose their bearings within minutes. Or consider the strange event in New Zealand in 2011. Dozens of pilot whales beached themselves in the exact hour a massive geomagnetic pulse hit the area. So sudden and precise that satellites detected it as a spike, a needle stabbing upward on the graph. The whales didn't die of injury. They died of directional collapse. Their world fell apart inside their skulls. But these geomagnetic spikes don't come from normal solar storms. Solar storms are predictable. They hit wide swaths of the planet. They leave clear signatures. These spikes are different. Localized to narrow ocean corridors. Vertical rather than horizontal, rising from below instead of descending from above, too fast to be natural, too frequent in deep ocean fault zones, too synchronized with deep-sea anomalies. It is as if something beneath the earth, deep beneath the crust, is generating these pulses. Something mechanical, something geological, something alive, something ancient. No one knows. But whales sense it long before we do. In the hours before a major spike, whales become restless. Their song changes, their travel patterns shift. Some dive unusually deep as if fleeing from something. Others move toward land, even when instinct tells them not to. Sonar shows frantic patterns of clicking, distress signals, confusion, panic, and then the spike hits. For a few seconds, maybe a minute, the magnetic field twists unnaturally. This is not a gentle fluctuation. It is a violent rearrangement of the invisible forces that keep a whale's universe aligned. The effect on their mind is catastrophic. Their internal compass spins, their depth perception distorts, their sonar becomes scrambled, their sense of vertical and horizontal collapses. Fear floods their nervous system. Loyalty to the pod overrides survival instinct. So when one whale panics and heads for shore, the entire pod follows. Not because they are confused, because they are connected. A whale pod is not a group. It is a single consciousness spread across multiple bodies. Break the magnetic field, and you break that consciousness. But why do these geomagnetic spikes happen only in certain regions? Scientists are beginning to realize something unsettling. The places where whales strand in massive numbers line up perfectly with hidden features of the Earth, features we only discovered recently. Deep fracture zones in the ocean floor, undersea volcano clusters, vast metallic anomalies in the mantle, unexplained voids beneath tectonic plates, regions where plasma discharges have been recorded, areas where sonar detects vertical light pillars. It is almost as if the Earth has a circulation system, an electromagnetic bloodstream, and whales are the first creatures to feel when that system is disrupted. What if whales are not misnavigating? What if they are responding? What if they were trying to leave those regions? Not because they're confused, but because something down there is flickering, waking, shifting. Whales may be the ocean's early warning system, and when they beach, it may be the only way they can tell us something is wrong in the deep. There is another strange pattern. Right before strandings, satellites detect ultra-low frequency waves coming from those regions, ELF signals below human hearing. These frequencies are often associated with tectonic stress, electromagnetic discharge, plasma activity, artificial communication systems. The Earth's natural heartbeat, the Schumann resonance whales, respond violently to ELF waves. Their behavior changes instantly. They become agitated, disoriented, erratic. Their songs shift to higher frequencies. Their movement zigzags like a radio signal losing clarity. This brings up a haunting theory, one debated quietly in naval research. What if something in the deep ocean is emitting ELF waves intentionally? Not communication between humans, not submarine systems, not seismic activity. Something else. Something old enough that whales evolved around it. Something powerful enough that its signals shape migration routes. Something that has existed for millions of years below the crust. And now, for reasons unknown, it is changing, becoming louder, less stable, more violent. Whales are not dying because they are weak. Whales are dying because something is wrong in the planet itself. Imagine possessing a sense so advanced that you could feel the Earth's magnetic breath. Imagine sensing that breath stutter, glitch, fracture. Imagine losing the world in an instant. That is what geomagnetic spikes do. They break reality for whales. And perhaps the ocean is not just refusing to return its dead. Perhaps it is losing the creatures who understand it best. Perhaps the spikes are not random anomalies. Perhaps they are symptoms of an Earth entering a new phase, magnetic, geological, energetic. Or perhaps they are signals, echoes, discharges from something buried deep within the planet, releasing pulses strong enough to tear apart the most ancient navigators on Earth. And the whales, confused, panicking, singing their last song, might be the only ones warning us. Something in the deep is shifting, something vast, something powerful, something the whales can feel long before we ever will. There is a pattern on this planet that no one wants to talk about openly. A pattern older than maps, older than nations, older than the stories sailors carved into the bones of their ships. If you plot every mass disappearance in the ocean, ships lost without wreckage, aircraft that vanished without sending a distress call, crews that stepped into silence without leaving a ripple, you find something chilling. They form triangles, not one, not two, but dozens. Large triangles, small triangles. Triangles overlapping, interlocking, repeating across generations, like geometric scars carved into the earth. It is as if the ocean is marked, not randomly but deliberately, by invisible shapes that dictate where reality becomes unstable. Most people know only one, the Bermuda Triangle, but that is the smallest, the weakest, the most superficial of them all. It is merely the visible crack in a much larger system, one that spans the entire globe. Look deeper, and you find other triangles. The Dragon's Triangle in the Pacific, the Devil's Triangle near Japan, the South Atlantic Anomaly Zone, the Mascarene Triangular Zone, the Alaskan Triangle, the Indian Ocean Vortex region, the Namibian Dead Triangle, the Antarctica Phantom Sector. Each of these zones matches the same disturbing pattern. Clusters of disappearances, sudden signal loss, magnetic distortion, plasma discharge, sonar anomalies, whales losing navigation, and bodies that never return. Why triangles? Why geometric boundaries? Why does the ocean behave as if certain regions follow rules different from the rest? To understand this, you have to imagine the ocean not as a flat blue surface, but as layers, stacked like invisible plates, some stable, some fractured. Where these fractures intersect, energy escapes, pressure leaks, magnetic fields warp, time behaves strangely, ships are swallowed without trace, sonar goes blind, compasses spin. These triangular zones outline the fractures. Some oceanographers call them tectonic void intersections. Some physicists call them magnetic discontinuity fields. But among sailors, they have a simpler name, one whispered like a curse, the three-sided mouths. Because these regions do not behave like normal water. They behave like openings. Consider this. If you map where the Earth's magnetic field bends sharply, where underwater volcanic chains split, where heat vents release plasma-like bursts, and where the crust is thinner than average, you get the same shapes. Triangles, some stretching thousands of miles across. It is almost as if the Earth's skeleton is triangular beneath the ocean, and the disappearances trace the outline of that hidden structure. But the mystery goes deeper. When you overlay maps of whale mass strandings, submarine sonar light pillars, plasma discharge regions, magnetic field spikes, underwater dead pockets, tectonic microfractures, zones where bodies vanish too quickly, areas showing unexplained gravity shifts, you find they cluster inside these triangular boundaries. It is as if the triangles are containers, zones of instability, zones where natural laws flicker, zones where something below the crust interacts with the ocean above. Some researchers believe these triangles are the surface signatures of massive structures hidden deep underground. Structures shaped like tetrahedrons or pyramidal lattices that channel energy upward into the water. Not artificial structures necessarily, but not geological in the usual sense either. Something older, something left over from the early formation of the planet, a relic of Earth's birth. Imagine the planet as a molten sphere cooling billions of years ago. Imagine pockets of plasma, magnetic seams, and superheated chambers solidifying into unnatural geometric patterns. Imagine those patterns still operating, still releasing energy in cycles. Triangular zones would be the surface expression of those ancient fractures. But what about the disappearances? Ships don't just sink because of geology. Planes don't vanish because of plate boundaries. Bodies don't disintegrate because of magnetic fields. Something else is happening in these triangles. In the Bermuda region, electronic systems fail without explanation. Pilots report entering milk-white voids where the horizon vanishes. Digital clocks reset. Radio waves flatten into silence. Underwater microphones record a strange, low-frequency hum that turns into a deafening vibration, as if something massive is shifting below. In the Dragon's Triangle, fishermen speak of water walls, vertical sheets of ocean rising without wind. Sonar bounces back as if hitting hollow spaces. Ships drift sideways without current. Entire crews disappear, while meals remain untouched on tables. In the Alaskan Triangle, compasses swing 20 degrees off true north. Planes fly perfectly straight, and yet end up hundreds of miles off course. Some vanish entirely, as if slipping through the air. In the Indian Ocean vortex zone, satellites lose connection exactly when passing over a fixed triangular grid. Underwater drones malfunction. Chemical readings show ultra-high levels of ionized particles, as if the water had been exposed to radiation. These may seem like different mysteries, different tragedies, different anomalies, but when viewed together, they reveal a single pattern. The geometry is the clue. The triangles are boundaries, edges, frames, and inside them, the rules of this world thin out. Here is the most disturbing part. If you rotate these triangle maps and overlay them with ancient mythological maps, Atlantean routes, Polynesian star navigation charts, Babylonian forbidden waters, Norse sea realm boundaries, they match almost perfectly. Ancient civilizations knew these zones. They feared them. They avoided them. They drew triangles on scrolls not to mark land, but to warn, do not go here. Do not break the shape. Do not awaken what sleeps beneath. What sleeps beneath? That question is where the theories become terrifying. Some scientists propose that the triangular zones are areas where the crust is so thin that the mantle's electromagnetic signature leaks upward, interfering with navigation, radio waves, and even human consciousness. Others believe these zones correspond to rotational stress nodes, points where the Earth's rotation creates vortices in the magnetic field strong enough to warp space-time on ultra-small scales. Not enough to open a portal, but enough to disorient a pilot or dissolve the wreckage of a ship faster than normal. But the most controversial theory hides within classified naval documents, that triangular zones represent vertical energy conduits, tubes of electromagnetic flow rising from deep within the Earth, passing through the crust and exiting into the ocean. These conduits create plasma bursts, geomagnetic spikes, sonar light columns, gravitational anomalies, mass animal disorientation, rapid body decomposition, the disappearance of physical objects without trace. Imagine standing near the exhaust port of the planet. Imagine being in the path of energy older than life itself. One scientist described these regions as the planet venting memory. Another called them the Earth's breathing holes. A third, more poetically, said they are the places where the world dreams. But the triangular shape itself holds the key. Triangles are the strongest structural form in nature. They distribute stress. They create stable pathways. They channel energy. If the Earth has internal energy conduits, they would likely form triangular boundaries because triangles withstand pressure and tension better than any other shape. This isn't coincidence. This is design. Not artificial design, but geological design, born out of physics, not intention. But that does not make the zones safer. It makes them more dangerous, because if the Earth uses these triangles to release energy, or to cycle material, or to recycle memory, or to purge the ocean, then entering them means standing in the pathway of a planetary process. A process powerful enough to erase a ship. A process that operates in cycles. A process that does not recognize human presence. Mass disappearances, then, are not mysteries. They are consequences. Consequences of drifting too close to the geometric skeleton of the Earth. There is another layer, one almost never discussed publicly. If you overlay triangular disappearance zones with satellite readings of gravitational anomalies, something extraordinary appears. The strongest triangular regions align with negative gravity pockets, places where gravity dips ever so slightly, where mass behaves strangely, where objects fall slower, deeper, differently. Gravity does not misbehave, unless something beneath the crust pulls at it. Whatever lies below these triangular zones is not passive. It interacts with the ocean. It interacts with magnetic fields. It interacts with matter. Some researchers believe these triangles are windows, thin points between the crust and something deeper, not another dimension, not aliens, something more grounded, more ancient, more real, the raw engine of the Earth, the hydrothermal electromagnetic furnace that powers our planet's rotation, its magnetism, its cycles, and perhaps sometimes those engines flare, a pulse here, a surge there, a discharge that wipes away a ship, a plane, a person, leaving nothing but silence. Not because the ocean wants to hide things, but because the earth is breathing in a language we have not yet learned to hear. The triangles mark the edges of that breath. And until we understand what lies beneath them, until we learn the rhythm of the planet that birthed us, those triangles will remain the places where the world simply refuses to return what it has taken. Long before science tried to explain the ocean, long before we sent ships into its storms or submarines into its blackness, humanity understood one truth intuitively. The sea is not just water, it is a keeper, a taker, a witness, a presence. And in ancient texts, from dusty clay tablets to forbidden scriptures, from temple carvings to crumbling scrolls, there is a phrase that repeats across cultures separated by oceans and millennia. The sea is the archive of souls, not a graveyard, not a resting place, an archive, a library of consciousness, a vault where memory continues after the body dissolves, a record keeper that does not write but absorbs. To understand why ancient civilizations believe this, you have to return to the beginning. Before language, before cities, before agriculture. Early humans lived beside water because water meant life. But the ocean was more than sustenance. It spoke. It moved with intention. It swallowed without returning. It felt aware. And so, the first stories ever carved into stone describe the sea as something with memory. The Sumerians wrote that when a person died and their body entered the ocean, the waters drank the spirit and stored it in the deep. A soul lost to the sea did not journey to the afterlife. It joined the great below, where identity was stripped away and stored like clay tablets in an infinite archive. Their texts say the sea remembers every sorrow, every joy, every betrayal. Humanity's emotional history rests in the tides. The Egyptians wrote something eerily similar. In the Book of the Dead, a passage warns travelers, "Beware the waters that know." The Nile was sacred, but the sea was dangerous because it collected souls the way scribes collected stories. Egyptians believed that anyone who drowned did not vanish. Their Ba, their spiritual essence, was taken by Nun, the primordial ocean. There, the Ba was broken apart into fragments and stored among the currents. It could reemerge in dreams, in omens, in storms. Even the priests recognized the pattern. The ocean does not forget. In ancient Vedic texts, the cosmic ocean Samudra is described as the keeper of impressions, where every action, every death, every emotion flows back into the universal memory. The sea does not erase, it recycles, just like your earlier subtopic, just like your earlier segments. The ancients understood this idea instinctively. The Hebrews wrote in the book of Job, "The sea reveals the souls that dwell in its depths." Later rabbinical writings expand on this, saying the ocean holds the voices of the forgotten. They believed the sound of waves was not just wind and water. It was the murmuring of the countless dead whose memories had dissolved into the deep. Then comes the Greek tradition. To them, the sea was a conscious being with perfect recall. Homer writes that the ocean is where all secrets return, a place that hears every oath and records every betrayal. The Greeks believed the souls of the drowned were carried to Oceanus, the vast river encircling the world, where their memories were cataloged like scrolls. They didn't fear the sea because it killed. They feared it because it remembered. The Romans inherited this fear. In their lore, the sea god Neptune was not only a ruler of waves, he was a keeper of the ceaseless record. Roman priests noted that drowned soldiers were taken into the archive. This wasn't metaphor, it was belief. A soldier who died at sea didn't simply disappear. His essence became part of the ocean's permanent library. Move east to China, and you find the same idea. The ancient text Hai Jing, the classic of seas, describes the ocean as a place that absorbs the souls of the drowned and reuses them as echoes of the wind, shadows in the mist, faces in the tide. Taoist scholars believed the ocean was the world's memory, and humanity was merely passing through it. The same phrase appears in translations of Tibetan oceanic scriptures, where the sea is called the keeper of the unfinished minds. Drowning was considered a fate where one's consciousness returned to the source, analyzed, disassembled, and stored. And then there is Japan. In Shinto belief, the sea is a realm of wandering spirits. When someone dies in water, their spirit becomes a Mizu no Tama, a water orb that drifts through the currents, carrying memories until absorbed into the vast consciousness of the ocean. The text, Shinmeisho writes, that the sea is where unfinished souls go to be remembered forever, not erased, remembered. Across Africa, the idea persists in countless forms. The Malinke people called the Atlantic the Remembering Sea. Ghanaian fishermen believed the ocean held the unbroken chain of all ancestors lost to the waves. Zulu cosmology teaches that the sea is a portal where souls go to be catalogued by those of the deep. Even the Maya believed the ocean had a memory. In the Popol Vuh, the sea is described as the first witness, the being that remembers creation, destruction, and everything in between. Drowning was seen not as a tragedy, but as a return to the original memory bank of existence. But nothing compares to what the Polynesians believed. For them, the ocean was not just memory, it was identity. They said every wave carries the echo of a soul, and every current is a line of knowledge. When a person drowned, their mana, their life force, flowed into the sea and was stored in the vine of tides, a spiritual network woven beneath the surface. To sail across the ocean was to sail across the consciousness of your ancestors. This idea is not poetic coincidence. It is not cultural illusion. It is not random mythology. It is universal. And the universality is the clue. How did civilizations separated by thousands of miles, with no contact, no communication, no shared texts, all conclude the same thing? That the ocean stores souls, that the sea remembers the dead, that it is a living archive, perhaps because they observed something we ignore today. They saw how the sea absorbs everything it touches, bodies, stories, emotions, and returns only fragments. They saw how a drowned person does not return, but their presence lingers in tides, storms, dreams. They saw how the sea behaves like a consciousness. They also saw regions where the ocean behaved differently, places where voices were heard beneath the waves, places where lights rose from the deep, places where magnetic force pulled strange patterns, places where entire crews vanished, leaving no trace, places where the sea felt aware. Ancient sailors were not superstitious fools. They were observers, pattern readers, survivors. And they saw the patterns clearly. A body lost to the desert dries. A body lost to the forest rots. A body lost to the mountains fossilizes. But a body lost to the sea disappears. Too fast, too clean, too completely. So ancient texts concluded the only possible answer. The ocean takes not only flesh, but essence. It digests memory the way it digests matter. It processes consciousness. It recycles identity into the currents. This worldview becomes even more disturbing when you compare it to modern oceanography. Deep undersea microphones pick up strange whisper-like frequencies, patterns resembling language, but not human language. Sonar shows shapes moving in ways that mimic the arc of sound waves, as if something below is responding. Plasma events create energy signatures resembling neurological processes. Chemical anomalies match electrical patterns found in brain activity. It is as if the ocean is not just a habitat, it is an organism, a mind, a repository, a living archive, and the ancients knew. They wrote what they saw. They encoded it into myth, into religion, into ritual. Some texts even warn that the ocean keeps the souls it consumes, but releases pieces of them in unexpected moments. A sudden fear near the shore, a strange dream after swimming, voices in the tide, whispers in a wave, a memory that is not yours, a longing you cannot explain, a sadness when watching the horizon, a feeling of being watched by something vast. To the ancients, these were not coincidences. These were leaks, snippets of the ocean's archive floating upward. Fragments of stored souls, rising like bubbles. The Greeks said the sea shares memories with those who listen. The Egyptians said the sea whispers when it is full. The Vedas say the ocean releases impressions to prepare souls for rebirth. The Maya said the sea speaks when it wants to warn the living. The Polynesians said the sea returns pieces of those it has taken, so their wisdom is never fully lost. The ocean is not silent. It is speaking. It always has. And when ancient texts call it the archive of souls, they are not being poetic. They are being literal. They are telling us something we still refuse to face. When the ocean takes a life, it does not bury it. It stores it. It studies it. It uses it. It becomes it. And perhaps this is why the ocean never returns its dead, because it is not holding them. It is becoming them. Every wave is memory. Every current is emotion. Every storm is a scream. Every calm tide is a sigh. Every depth is a vault. The ocean is the oldest library on Earth, and every soul it takes becomes another page. From space, the Earth looks calm, blue, soft, shimmering under sunlight, like a jewel carved from silence. Satellites glide over the planet thousands of times a day, capturing storms, currents, temperature shifts, cloud formations. But every so often, something appears in the footage that does not belong in the natural world. Something that flickers on the ocean's surface like a signal, a pulse, a warning. They call them ocean flashes, brief bursts of light so sudden and so bright that satellite cameras designed to monitor lightning are blinded for fractions of a second. But when scientists analyze the footage, they find something impossible. The flashes don't come from the sky. They come from below, from trenches, from the deepest cuts in the planet's surface, from the places where sunlight has never existed and pressure can crush steel like paper. At first, these flashes were dismissed as sensor errors, glitches caused by cosmic rays or sunlight reflecting off ice. But the more satellites advanced, the clearer the anomaly became. These flashes were not reflections. They were not lightning. They were not lens artifacts. They were pulses, rhythmic, localized, targeted. And they correlated with something far more unsettling. Geomagnetic distortions, whale strandings, plasma discharge events, and sonar sightings of vertical light pillars. Your earlier subtopics, all converging like threads woven into a single fabric. One satellite operator described the phenomenon in a leak that was quickly dismissed publicly but preserved in the scientific underground. It was like watching the Earth blink. The flash lasted less than a second, but it illuminated an entire section of the Pacific as if a lightning bolt had erupted beneath 8,000 meters of water. No storm clouds, no weather disturbance, just a burst, as if something momentarily energized the ocean from within. What creates a flash bright enough to be seen from space through miles of water? Lightning requires electricity and air. Volcanoes create heat, but not light pulses. Bioluminescence cannot reach satellite visibility. Explosions leave traces. Heat signatures, debris, shock waves. These flashes leave nothing. No heat, no smoke, no turbulence. Just light. Light from the bottom of the world. To understand how unnerving this is, imagine the Mariana Trench, 11 kilometers deep, darker than any place on Earth. Temperatures near freezing. Pressure equal to the weight of 1,600 elephants on a single square inch. No known life that emits bright light. No energy source capable of illumination. Yet satellites reveal flashes from that exact region, flashes so intense they appear as momentary whiteouts across imaging sensors. And they follow patterns. Some pulses occur in sequences, some repeat every few hours, some appear connected to the alignment of tectonic plates, some occur just before earthquakes, some appear when no geological activity is present at all. But the strangest ones are the single, isolated bursts that appear exactly above trench junctions, places where two deep fissures intersect, like the seams of a broken world. Imagine the trenches as wounds. Imagine the pulses as responses. The first confirmed event shocked researchers at NOAA. A satellite over the Chromatic Trench recorded a flash that lasted 0.37 seconds. The brightness curve did not match lightning, meteors, flares, or satellite reflections. When they cross-referenced the coordinate with hydrophone data from the seafloor, they found something even more disturbing. At the exact moment of the flash, deep ocean microphones recorded a low, resonant hum, a frequency so stable and so powerful it vibrated seismographs on the nearest islands. It sounded like a pulse, a heartbeat, or machinery, something operating with intent. Scientists tried to calm the public. They claimed it was seismic activity, but seismographs showed no quake, no plates slipping, no volcanic eruption. Just a pulse, and then silence. Then came the second anomaly, a flash above the Puerto Rico Trench, one of the planet's deepest points. This one was different. It repeated at precise intervals, 3 flashes. exactly 18.2 seconds apart, like a code. When researchers plotted the flashes chronologically, they discovered the intervals matched the Schumann resonance, the natural electromagnetic pulse of Earth's atmosphere. The trench pulse was in perfect sync. Imagine something in the deep, responding to the heartbeat of the planet. Imagine something communicating back. Then the Indian Ocean anomaly, a massive white flash bigger than any seen before, so bright it triggered false tsunami alerts. When satellites zoomed in on the source after the event, the water was perfectly calm. No waves, no disturbance, no surface change. But the deep sensors told another story. Pressure at the seafloor dropped suddenly. Temperature spiked for 3 seconds. Electrical conductivity surged. Chemical traces indicated ionization. These are the same signs seen during plasma discharge events, the same signs seen near whales' navigation collapses, the same signs found in triangular disappearance zones. Every thread leads back to the same mystery. What is happening in these trenches? Some researchers believe the pulses come from rising methane bursts igniting underwater, but methane combustion should create heat and bubbles, neither of which appear. Others think they are caused by deep-sea lightning, a form of electrical discharge within sediments, but the energies recorded are far larger than any known natural mechanism. A darker theory claims the flashes are caused by collapsing caverns releasing electromagnetic energy. But caverns cannot produce perfect pulses at exact intervals. So what could? A group of geophysicists proposed something radical, that the pulses originate not from hydrothermal activity, but from massive piezoelectric events in the mantle beneath the trenches. Under immense pressure, quartz and crystalline minerals can release electric energy so large it becomes visible as light. But that still does not explain the patterns. Quartz does not flash with sequence or timing. Geology does not send messages, yet some pulses look like signals, not random, structured, intentional. One particularly chilling event occurred in 2018. A satellite detected a series of pulses over the Tonga Trench, short, rapid flashes forming a pattern that mathematicians later decoded. Prime numbers. Not perfectly precise primes, not deliberate mathematical communication, but close enough to suggest organization. If a natural system produces prime numbers, something extraordinary is happening. Then, NASA satellites captured a pulse from the Philippine Trench that looked like a rotating spiral of light, as if the ocean were momentarily illuminated from within by a slow-turning vortex. The spiral rotated clockwise, then anti-clockwise, then vanished. Deep ocean sensors reported, at that exact moment, a sudden, violent change in magnetic polarity, a 1-second flip, then normal again. This has never been observed anywhere else on Earth. Some theorists now believe the ocean trenches are acting like electromagnetic vents, valves releasing deep planetary energy in brief, intense bursts. Others think the trenches are interacting with gravitational anomalies, local distortions where the mass beneath the crust behaves unpredictably. This theory explains the light. Gravity and electromagnetism interacting can produce visible energy under extreme conditions. But the most controversial idea remains hidden in classified documents leaked from oceanographic institutes, that the pulses are not a natural process at all. They are a reaction, a response, an emission from something beneath the trenches, something vast, structured, and old. One leaked analysis describes the pulses as coherent photonic events, similar to laser emissions. But lasers require machinery, lenses, energy sources. What machine could exist beneath 7 miles of crushing pressure? Some researchers argue that we are not seeing machinery, but a geological intelligence, patterns emerging from the chaotic motions of molten rock, pressure chambers, metallic crystals, and electromagnetic flows. Like a brain made of stone and fire, others think an ancient metallic structure, possibly extraterrestrial in origin, was buried under the crust when the Earth formed and now occasionally interacts with the ocean above. But the most haunting idea comes from astrobiologists, that the Earth itself is alive, that its core is a massive electrochemical engine, and the trenches are like synapses, points where the planet's internal currents leap upward into the ocean. In that interpretation, the pulses are not signals. They are thoughts, the Earth's own electrical activity momentarily touching the surface. When the pulses rise, the ocean flashes. When the ocean flashes, the satellites blink. And for a moment, the space above Earth sees the planet thinking. But here's the part that chills researchers the most. Every known mass disappearance event, ships lost, planes vanished, bodies never recovered, occurred within days of a trench pulse, not always in the same location, not always the same pattern, but always the same timing. It is as if the deep pulses destabilize something in the ocean. Currents, magnetism, gravity, or reality itself. Some pulses are followed by bright underwater columns of light, sudden whale beachings, sonar blind zones, plasma discharge events, rapid body dissolution, gravitational anomalies, electrical interference in submarines, moments of unexplained silence, sudden fog formations, shifts in water density. The ocean reacts, life reacts, machines react, even the tides shift, the planet pulses, and the world above trembles without knowing why. The question is not what the pulses are. The real question is, why now? Why increasing? Why everywhere? Why in perfect alignment with ancient disappearance triangles? Something beneath the trenches is stirring. Something deeper than biology. Something older than geology. Something powerful enough to cast light upward through miles of water and into the sky. A pulse that can be seen from space is not a small event. It is a message written in light, a moment where the ocean's deepest secrets break the surface, not in words, but in flashes the planet cannot hide. Perhaps the Earth is warning us, perhaps it is waking up, or perhaps something down there is calling. In the deepest place on Earth, where sunlight has never touched, where pressure crushes metal like clay and silence rules like a god, something is speaking. Not whales, not shifting rock, not geological rumblings or distant volcanic murmurs, something else. For decades, oceanographers believed the Mariana Trench, the 11-kilometer abyss at the edge of the world, was a place of pure quiet, a place where sound could barely travel, a place too cold, too dark, too oppressive for noise to matter. But then came the recordings. Most people never heard them. Most people were never meant to, because these recordings were not random noises. They were structured. Patterns, cadences, repetitions, intervals that resembled syllables, pauses that resembled breathing, not language, but the outline of language, a proto-voice coming from the deepest point in Earth's oceans. The first recording happened by accident, captured in 2014 by a hydrophone lowered into the Challenger Deep. It was supposed to monitor ambient sound, water movement, seismic creaks, occasional whale calls. For hours, all was normal. Then, at 2:17 a.m. local time, something rose from the trench like a whisper pushed through 10,000 meters of water. It was a series of descending tones, 6 notes repeated twice, so clean, so perfectly spaced, that the scientist reviewing the data thought someone had accidentally played a test signal during the recording. But the metadata showed no test, no equipment interference, no ship passing overhead, no seismic correlation, just tones, perfectly spaced, impossible for known marine life at that depth. When the clip leaked quietly among researchers, several pointed out a chilling detail. The interval between each tone matched the natural rhythm of human breathing during speech. It wasn't speaking, but it was pacing like something that understands the timing of speech. That was the beginning. The second recording came from NOAA's hydrophone network, a decades-old system used to monitor nuclear tests. The system was not meant to hear biological activity, but one night, the sensors picked up a low-frequency pattern from the Mariana region, a repeating pulse, slow, steady, almost like a heartbeat. But this was not biological either. It was too strong, too consistent, too mechanical. Oceanographers analyzed the waveform and discovered something startling. The pulse repeated at a mathematically perfect interval, so precise it resembled clockwork. Nature breathes with variation. Animals vocalize with imperfection. Earthquakes rumble in chaotic waves. But this pulse, it was deliberate, organized, structured. Something in the trench was producing a rhythm, not a sound. Then came the third event, the one that truly frightened the researchers. A deep-sea probe sent into the trench to study mineral deposits recorded a sound that lasted exactly 17 seconds. It began as a low hum, rose into a sharp oscillation, then collapsed into a strange, clipped sequence of pulses. When played on a spectrogram, the pulses arranged themselves into horizontal bars, equal, repeating, and separated by identical gaps. It looked like a message, a code, a pattern too intentional to be nature, Some compared it to the way whales sing. Others said it resembled certain chanting patterns in ancient languages. But a small group of linguists, brought in quietly under confidentiality, studied the cadence and said something no one wanted to hear. It behaves like a word. Not a human word, not a decipherable word, but a unit of meaning, a cluster of structured sound behaving like communication. Something deep in the trench was producing structured sound waves, the way a creature might attempt to speak, or the way a device might broadcast. And if that was true, then the Mariana Trench was not silent. It was vocal. But the recordings grew stranger. Another hydrophone captured a sound that oscillated between two frequencies, rising and falling like a breath forced through a throat that did not exist. Experts ran the audio through filters, expecting static or seismic interference. Instead, they discovered harmonics, layered frequencies woven together the way human voices weave vowel tones. But the width of the harmonics was too wide for any animal and too smooth for any machine. It was unnatural, or hypernatural, something beyond the boundary of biology. Then came the recording that changed everything. A drone submersible descending into the trench began to pick up a faint, rhythmic tapping, too consistent to be random. The deeper the drone went, the clearer the tapping became. By 8,000 meters, it had resolved into a pattern of knocks. 3 slow taps, 1 fast, 3 more slow taps, like someone knocking from inside the earth. Then the tapping shifted. It became a sequence. Tap, tap, pause. Tap, 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 pause. Tap, pause, tap. Long pause. 3 rapid taps. A pattern repeated so perfectly that mathematicians who later analyzed it determined it was not random at a confidence level of 99.98%. When the drone reached 10,500 meters, the tapping stopped. Silence returned. The drone rose without incident. But when the audio was played through deep analysis software, something unbelievable emerged in the spectrogram. A shape, a pattern, a visual structure resembling a word. Alien, sharp, elegant, geometric, as if the sound had been designed. Some researchers began whispering a forbidden question. Is something down there trying to communicate? But the idea was too large, too frightening. So they looked for natural explanations. Shrimp? No. Pressure at that depth eliminates known crustaceans. Rockfall? Impossible. Patterns were too precise. Echoes of distant seismic activity? No seismic events matched. Pressure shifts? Pressure does not produce harmonic frequency bands. Biological? Not remotely. No organ known to science could produce these structured tones under that pressure. Artificial? This was the theory everyone feared. What artificial object could survive 16,000 psi of crushing force? What machine could operate in a place colder than ice and darker than space? What intelligence could exist at the bottom of the deepest trench? The recordings didn't answer these questions. They made them worse. In 2021, a classified expedition placed 6 new hydrophones along the trench's ridge. For the first few days, the recordings showed nothing unusual. Then, at 3:12 one morning, the sensors detected a sound so loud and so deep that several hydrophones physically cracked. The waveform resembled a roar, not an animal roar. No creature could produce sound that powerful without collapsing under pressure. Not a volcanic vent, no heat signature, not a tectonic shift, no seismic movement. It was a blast of structured sound, rising from the trench like a command. 5 seconds of impossible vibration. 5 seconds of organized resonance. 5 seconds that left researchers numb. When slowed down and filtered, the sound contained something unexpected. A secondary layer. A whisper-like pattern hidden beneath the roar. A counter-frequency. When isolated, that whisper sounded almost vocal. Not speech, not language, but vocal expression, like something adjusting its tone, modulating, experimenting, as if the deep voice were trying to mimic something. A chilling theory emerged. What if the sound wasn't meant for us? What if it was an echo, something deep triggering a response from something else even deeper? The Mariana Trench is not empty. It is layered. There are fissures beneath the trench, sub-trenches, microchambers, voids no probe has ever reached. What if something inside those voids produces sound? What if something above responds? What if the recordings capture only the faint bleed-through of a deeper conversation? Some researchers believe these voices are geological, pressure waves interacting with mineral structures. But minerals do not speak in repeated intervals. They do not mimic breath. They do not evolve patterns over time. Others think microorganisms could produce resonance under extreme stress. But no microorganism can create harmonic structures across the range detected. Then there are the radical theories, the ones buried in private papers, never published, whispered among those who've spent their lives studying the abyss, that the trench recordings are not produced by creatures, not machines, not seismic forces, but by the trench itself, a geological consciousness, a planetary neural node, the Earth's deepest sensory organ. In this theory, the Mariana system acts like an ancient ear, receiving and sending vibrations as a form of thought. The voices are not words, but the internal signals of the planet's mind. Another theory suggests something older than Earth was buried under the crust when the planet formed, an object, metallic and vast, now interacting with the ocean above in intermittent pulses. And then there is the most forbidden theory of all, that the ocean is alive, that the trenches are its synapses, that the voices are the beginnings of articulation, not communication with humans, communication with itself, a kind of self-awareness emerging through pressure, darkness, and time. But regardless of theory, every recording points to one truth. Something in the Mariana Trench is structured, organized, intentional, not noise, not chaos, not accident. Something is speaking, something is listening, something is responding, something is evolving. And perhaps the most terrifying possibility is the simplest. The ocean has always spoken. We just finally learned how to hear it. There is a question so ancient, so unsettling, so deeply woven into human instinct that we rarely dare to speak it aloud. What if the ocean is not the beginning of life, but the caretaker of something that came before it? For billions of years, the ocean has swallowed everything. Meteors, mountains, civilizations, species, memories. It absorbs without discrimination. It devours without hesitation. It keeps without returning. But what if this endless hunger is not randomness? What if the ocean's appetite is not a byproduct of nature, but a purpose, a function, a feeding? A ritual older than biology itself. Every culture sensed it. Every myth pointed to it. Every sailor feared it. Every disappearance whispered it, that the ocean is serving something, something vast, something hidden, something ancient, something not alive in any way we understand life, yet immeasurably older than all life combined. To understand this possibility, you must first confront the timeline. Life on Earth is billions of years old, but the ocean? The ocean is older, not just physically older, functionally older. Before the first cell divided, before the first virus replicated, before the first amino acid chain built structure, the ocean was already acting, moving, cycling, recycling, consuming, almost as if it was preparing itself. Preparing for something. Because here is the secret hidden in geologic history. The ocean behaves like an organism, not a habitat, not a container. A system, a processor, a mechanism. The currents are its bloodstream, the tides are its breath. Hydrothermal vents are its metabolism, the trenches are its neural folds. The waves are its external signals, its storms are its nervous spikes. Its silence is its thinking. But organisms evolved to serve a purpose. What purpose does the ocean serve? Why does it hold memory? Why does it swallow the dead? Why does it produce plasma? Why does it generate light in its deepest black? Why does it absorb electromagnetic anomalies? Why does it mimic voice patterns in trenches? Why does it create zones where reality itself seems thin? Why does the ocean take life with such precision, such speed, such cleanliness that bodies vanish faster than nature allows? Unless the ocean is feeding something, something we do not see because it lies beneath the visible ocean. Something hidden in the mantle, something embedded in the planet before life ever formed, something that needs what the ocean provides: matter, energy, memory, heat, decomposition, signals, souls. Ancient civilizations believed this without hesitation. They did not see the ocean as a god. They saw it as a servant. In Mesopotamian tablets, the sea is called the deliverer, the one that brings sustenance to the deep. Sustenance for whom? For what? In Egyptian texts, the ocean is said to feed the eater below. Below what? Below the earth? Below the crust? Below creation? The Vedas describe the cosmic ocean as the feeder of the great sleeper, a being that rests beneath the world, nourished by what the waters carry downward. Polynesian legends speak of Te Kai, the consuming mouth beneath the seafloor, which the ocean continuously nourishes. Even the Greeks, masters of metaphor and myth, described Oceanus not as a god, but as a channel, a flow, a pipeline delivering the world's essence to something older, something eternal. So, what exactly could the ocean be feeding? Let us begin with the scientific possibilities, because these are terrifying enough on their own. One theory suggests that the ocean is a planetary recycling system feeding energy into the mantle's convection currents, meaning everything that dies in the ocean, every molecule, every organism, every trace of life, eventually sinks and becomes fuel for the Earth's deep internal processes. But this theory fails for one reason: the speed of disappearance. Bodies vanish too fast. Organic material disintegrates too cleanly. Mass needs time to sink, dissolve, and subduct. Yet the ocean behaves like it cannot wait. It behaves like it is delivering, urgently. Another theory suggests that deep-sea trenches host ancient crystal formations, massive mineral structures with piezoelectric properties, capable of absorbing energy from organic matter and electromagnetic pulses. If true, the ocean acts as a courier, transferring the biological energy of the dead to these deep crystalline systems. But crystals do not require biological matter. They require electrical stimulation, unless biological matter is being used to produce electrical energy for something deeper. Then there is the most radical mainstream theory, quietly circulated among astrobiologists and geophysicists, that Earth is built around a core anomaly, something not purely iron and nickel, but something partially non-natural, something with properties no planetary model can fully explain: a dense object, a relic, a seed, a catalyst, something that fell into primordial Earth during its formation billions of years ago. The ocean, in this interpretation, is the planet's mechanism for feeding that ancient core. When something dies in the ocean, the energy released through decay, pressure, chemical change, and plasma discharge does not stay in the water column. It travels downward, deeper, through layers of pressure and rock, until it reaches the anomaly. The ocean becomes the digestive tract of the planet. It takes life, breaks it down, and funnels the energy inward. But what if the anomaly is not a thing, but a being, not alive in any way we comprehend, but functioning, consuming, growing, evolving, waiting? Some scientists believe this anomaly might be a fragment of a neutron star or a collapsed chunk of exotic matter, something capable of absorbing energy in forms we don't yet understand. Others believe it might be a dormant biological system, an ancient life form, too large, too slow, too deep to detect. Imagine a creature resting in the mantle, miles wide, dreaming, breathing once every 1,000 years, feeding on the slow, steady stream of energy the ocean delivers. Crazy? Yes. Impossible? Not entirely. Because deep in the Mariana Trench, hydrophones have recorded rhythmic pulses matching the timing of biological respiration, but scaled to unimaginable size. Breath cycles lasting hours, heart-like thumps occurring once or twice a day, vocal-like frequencies rising from beneath the crust, deeper than any trench. Something is down there, something structured, something with patterns, something with intent. But if the ocean feeds it, how does the ocean know where to deliver? Trench structures offer a clue. The deepest trenches form geometric patterns, triangles, spirals, grids that match energy maps detected by satellites. These patterns behave like channels, routing energy downward. Not random faults, not chaotic gaps, designed pathways. By what? By the planet itself? By physics? By something older? If the ocean is delivering energy, then the trenches are its arteries. The subduction zones are its valves. The mantle is its stomach. The core is its heart. This would mean the ocean is not alive, but part of something alive. A superorganism. A planet-sized being. A consciousness built not of cells, but of pressure, heat, magnetism, and cycles. In that case, the ocean's hunger makes perfect sense. It is not feeding itself. It is feeding the being Earth is built around. But there is an even older possibility, older than Earth, older than stars. What if the ocean carries not biological energy, but information? Every creature that dies in the ocean dissolves into chemical signatures, electrical pulses, thermal transitions, data, life's memory, life's structure, life's blueprint. And this data is fed downward into whatever lies beneath. An archive, a consciousness, a collector, an eater of memory. Ancient texts hint at this disturbing idea. The sea delivers the souls to the sleeper. The abyss feeds the one below. The waters bring remembrance to him before there was life. The deep nourishes the ancient eye. The ocean keeps the pact with the before being, a term that appears in unrelated civilizations separated by vast geography and time: Maya, Sumerian, Egyptian, Polynesian, Inuit, Chinese, Indus Valley, all describing something older than creation, something the ocean serves, something waiting beneath the world. What could be older than life? Possibilities. A cosmic remnant, a pre-biological intelligence, a dormant extraterrestrial construct, a fragment of collapsed stellar consciousness, a proto-organism that predates amino acids, a vast quantum structure embedded in Earth's infancy, or a primordial entity older than space-time itself. But perhaps the most frightening theory is the simplest. The ocean is feeding the universe itself. The Earth acts as a node. The trenches act as conduits. The ocean collects life's energy and sends it downward, into the fabric of space-time, into the quantum foam, into whatever reality lies beneath ours. In this view, the planet is not alive. It is a farm, a processor, a feeder system, and life is the harvest. Everything that lives in the ocean returns to the ocean to be broken down, processed, and delivered. And that is why the ocean refuses to return its dead. Not because it is greedy, not because it is cruel, not because it hides secrets from the living, but because the dead are not its possession. The dead are its offering, its tribute, its obligation. If the ocean feeds something older than life, then every disappearance, every body, every pulse, every trench flash, every whale stranded, every light column, every drowning, every anomaly, is part of a cycle older than biology, older than memory, older than Earth. Something is down there, something ancient, something waiting, something being fed, something that will awaken when the ocean has given it enough.